Hello, Mike, Dynie here today to talk to you about how to enter the lotus position. So it's considered one of the ultimate postures for sitting in meditation. And it looks pretty cool. But a lot of people really destroy their knees trying to enter this posture, either without having sufficient flexibility in the hips or in the quadriceps, or even people who are really flexible can destroy their knees by entering this pose without taking certain safety precautions. So here we'll look at a couple different ways to build up towards the pose. First thing, you want to make sure that you're able to close the knee joint. So what we mean when we say that is that the calf touches the hamstring. So right now, knee joint is not closed, it's open. And then I fully flex the knee. So this is the closed knee joint position. If you're really tight, this might already be a big stretch. You're just going to sit up as tall as you can and just gently hug your leg in towards you. For those of you who found that quite easy, the next pose, it's called a 3 limbs forward pose, 1 limb back. Triangmukhaiekapada Paschimottanasana. So in this pose, I'm folding my right leg back. See, my knee joint is sealed. Knees as close together as possible. Top of the right foot is on the floor. If you're not able to sit in this position comfortably, then lotus is definitely not appropriate for your body at this time. But things might change over time. Just keep your practice consistent. Okay. So this pose helps to close the knee joint. If the quadriceps are really tight or you have knee injuries, you want to be really careful here. And you might need to modify it by sitting up on blocks or hang out with the previous pose. Now let's look at another preparation. Janu Sirsasana A, head beyond the knee pose. So we start entering the pose by closing the knee joint, just like we did earlier. So you can see why the previous pose is an important preparation. And then we take the foot to the inner thigh. But instead of just bringing it in and sucking the thigh back into the hip, I'm going to draw my knee way out to the right side, point my right toes, keeping that knee joint sealed. See? We call this the plantar flexion of the foot. Good. And then the foot comes to the inner thigh. And so this is a well-executed Janu Sirsasana A. If you're tight, I'll show you a different variation. So don't attempt this just yet if you couldn't do the previous pose. So with that knee joint in the sealed position, as I point my toes, the sole of the foot is turned upwards. So as I fold forward, the thigh is actually going to roll forward over the calf, just slightly. That was a bit of a dramatic demonstration, but that's what the intended action is. And the knee is drawing way out to the right. And so this is the same technique that's used in a well-executed half lotus. We close the knee joint, pointing the toe, and then draw the knee way out to the side, heel to navel. So notice my knee joint is sealed at all times. It's always closed. Good. And keeping that position, I let the knee lower down towards the floor as the foot comes towards the hip crease. See, it's that same sort of rotation as Janu Sirsasana A. And then I could fold in half lotus. Now here's where things get messy for people, and I've even seen other teachers hurt themselves this way. And I know I did it to myself about 3 years ago. So you notice it's very easy and very tempting to just take hold of that left leg and yank it up into lotus. But if we do that, then the knee joint is not closed. It's not in a protected position. So a lot of these rotational forces that we want to go through the hip will mistakenly go through the knee. So no good. That's not good. So one way to safely do it, we need to draw that left knee way out to the left side, closing the knee joint. You'll notice my foot is being yanked up towards my navel, not towards my hip right away. So close the knee joint, point the toe, and we can see my calf and hamstring are touching each other. Heel to navel, and then the foot comes to the hip crease. Good. Now, what if somebody is quite tight and isn't able to close the knee joint yet in Triangmukha? Well, then you won't want to attempt half lotus at all. You can completely leave that out for now. There's different hip openers to help you get there. Besides the ones we already looked at, there's also the cradle rock stretch, basically just like a pigeon. The leg could be somewhere around 90 degrees. That's a very, very rough number. Don't worry about that number. But this just helps us to bring that rotation into the hip. You can sit tall holding your leg. If you're really loose, you can bring that foot into your elbow. This is one option. So if you're in a class where people are doing half lotus, just modify doing this position. The other one to do is Janu Sirsasana, taking the foot to the inner thigh. If you're too tight to let that thigh roll forward over the calf, there's other ways to approach it. So we can actually use the opposite to help protect the knee if we're tighter in the hips or the knee joint isn't sealed. Instead of turning the foot upwards and pointing the toe, as I demonstrated for a good half lotus, you can do the opposite action with your foot. Don't let this confuse you. Different techniques are appropriate for different times. So this modified Janu Sirsasana A for tightness, foot flex to shin, and then you can actually press the outer edge of the foot into the floor. And this recommendation comes from Leslie Kaminoff's Yoga Anatomy book. If you'd like more information, check out page 145 of his book. So this is called the eversion of the foot, and according to Leslie Kaminoff, this activates the peroneal muscles, which can help stabilize the lateral ligaments of the knees and keep them from rotating too much. So lateral refers to the outside of your leg. Yeah. So you might end up doing Janu Sirsasana like this for a while. And if your knee doesn't quite reach the floor, that could be okay, but it might be a good idea to support it with some kind of prop, whether it's a block or a book. Good. And then keep on working the Triangmukha into your yoga practice. Even if it's just sitting up tall, hugging your leg in. Another good option is the hero's pose. Good way to help close the knee joints. So you can bring the knees close together and then take the feet about wider than hip width. Use your hands for support, and you're going to hold yourself up on your hands, lowering the buttocks towards the floor. If you're tight, you might stop in midair as I am right now. And over time, the buttocks comes down towards the floor. And it's good to do this once you're warmed up, especially if you're quite tight. Over time, as you loosen up, start to do this position before your yoga practice as a way to get into any tightness around the quads that you wouldn't be able to access when you're already warmed up. And that recommendation comes from Gregor Mele, who also provides us with great ways to understand hip openers and lotus positions. And his book is called Ashtanga Yoga, Practice and Philosophy. This book really saved my body, enhanced my practice immensely, so I highly, highly recommend this book. And if you're into the yoga philosophy, it also has a great rendition of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So that's it for growing the lotus. I hope you find this useful, and it's important to note that not everything I say is going to be true for everybody. I'm just sharing my own personal experience, and I've certainly found in the past that there's some techniques I use in my own body that don't apply to anybody else. And I'm someone that was very prone to getting knee problems because I have this excessive ability to rotate my tibia. And yeah, it sounds like it's something good, but it actually makes lotus positions potentially dangerous for me. So that's where pointing the toe in lotus really saved my knee. So have fun, and hope to see you at class soon. Peace.